Thank you, everyone. This is the Isle of Palm City Council. It's November 19th at 6 p.m. I'd like to acknowledge that both the press and the media were duly notified in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. If you would, please feel free to join me as I pray, to be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance and then roll call. Oh, Heavenly Father, I ask for your guidance and wisdom during this meeting. At this time of the year, I am thankful for what I have been blessed with on this green earth. May everyone be thankful for their loved ones, for their homes, and for their liberties. May everyone keep those less fortunate in their prayers. Oh, Heavenly Father, please look over and protect our veterans and those who serve our military and our public safety services. May we remember those who sacrificed the ultimate, their lives in protecting us. And Heavenly Father, please help and guide us tonight as we make decisions that affect our community for not only now, but for generations to come. And it is in your holy name I pray, amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nicole, roll call, please. I'm sorry to disturb.
No. Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Dahl?
Here.
Councilmember Kinghorn?
Here.
Councilmember Ward?
Here.
Councilmember Rice?
Here.
Councilmember Buchanan?
Here.
Councilmember Moy?
Here.
Councilmember Ferenz?
Here.
Mayor Carroll?
Here. Thank you very much. First item on our agenda is the oath of new employees in the fire department. We have Eric Boland, Nick Russo, and Lawrence Dougherty. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, well, now comes the time where we swear them in.
Got to vote on it.
All those in favor of that motion? Aye. Say aye. Any nays? Ayes have it, unanimous. Eric, up front.
Right.
Now, you guys realize I don't wear a suit often. But it's for y'all that I will wear a suit.
It's a really
It's for all of y'all. Y'all my heroes. Thank you. I, Eric Boland,
I, Eric Boland,
do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified,
do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified,
according to the ordinance of the City of Isle of Palms,
according to the ordinance of the City of Isle of Palms,
to perform the duties of the position to which I have been selected,
to perform the duties of the position to which I have been selected,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. Eric previously served Isle of Palms from 2007 to 2016. Returned to the Isle of Palms Fire Department in 2018. We like that. He's also a United States Marine Corporal veteran. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the city.
I also routinely beat the mayor in ping pong.
I got somebody for you. Where's he at?
That is not hard.
I knew that was coming. Nick? Nicholas Russo. How are you, my friend? All right.
Raise your hand.
I, Nicholas Russo,
I, Nicholas Russo,
do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified,
do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified,
according to the ordinance of the City of Isle of Palms,
according to the ordinance of the City of Isle of Palms,
to perform the duties to the position to which I have been selected,
to perform the duties of the position to which I've been duly selected,
and that I will, to the best of my abilities,
and will, to the best of my abilities,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
so help me God.
so help me God.
We got this last minute, so I got to read his writing. He started his career in the fire service at the age of 39. That was just a year ago. as a volunteer with the Ashley River Fire Department. He loves his job as much as he became a full-time employee and ended his service as a lieutenant. He is blessed with a lovely wife, Tina, and together they have 7 children.
Wow.
He's adventurous and purchased a sailboat without ever sailing. Chief Grant, you hear that? I look forward to having him finish out his fire career at the Isle Palms. Incidentally, if anybody's in the market for a sailboat, he's a comic too. Please give him a call. Welcome aboard. Mr. LD, or should I say Lawrence Dog? How you doing, my friend? I can say this is a lifetime. We're go back a couple years. I, Lawrence Dougherty,
I, Lawrence Doherty,
do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified,
do solemnly swear that I am duly qualified,
according to the ordinance of the City of Isle Palms,
according to the ordinance of the City of Isle Palms,
to perform the duties to the position to which I have been selected,
to perform the duties of the position to which I have been selected,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome aboard. He is currently pursuing an associate's degree of fire science from Columbia Southern University. He served for Isle Palms Fire Department from 1984 to 1998. He's coming back from Charleston EMS emergency management prior to coming back to work at the city. He lives in Allendale. Didn't you work at Allendale too? With his dog Bella. He attended Lighthouse Church in Mount Pleasant, and he's an island born and bred, all Palms. Welcome aboard, welcome back home.
There you go.
There you go, yeah. This is a good show, y'all should stay. Okay, reading from the journals of previous meetings, October 22nd, 2019. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any deletions, additions? Hearing none, yes ma'am.
There are a couple of misspellings of names that I've mentioned already to our city administrator that I expect will be corrected.
Duly noted. Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it, unanimous. Now we have our public comment period. I've only got one name on it. We got 30 minutes. Everybody gets up to 3. We got some additions coming up. Thank you, sir. First person, Beach Santa, a.k.a. Howard Pope. He's the most famous person on Isle Palms.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for all being here. I want to present my stats for this year, and I'm focusing on cigarette butts I picked up off of the beach only. And right now, as of today, and I did walk the beach a little bit before I got here, but my numbers, including today, are 4,644 cigarette butts off of the beach, and that's 35 tonight. If you do the math, that's only 232 packs of cigarette butts that I picked up, 232 plus packs. And, in my opinion, that's terrible. I shouldn't walk around and see cigarette butts anywhere, and that is a major problem. The cigarette butt is 94% plastic, and that plastic breaks down. You have to ask yourself, what harm can the cigarette butt do to the environment? I'm not a scientist by any means, but what happens to those microplastics when they enter the water system, whether it be the water between here and Mount Pleasant or the water on the ocean? It has to do something to it. Does the sea life and wildlife consume those little pieces of microplastic? I don't know. If it's there, it's a possibility. And again, I don't know. I'm not a scientist by any means. But I wonder if the seafood that they're harvesting out here, when I see the shrimp boats and other boats out there harvesting seafood, how much of that microplastic that's in the system is consumed by that seafood that is going to the local restaurants and customers are eating it. So you have to ask yourself, how much of the cigarette butts are in the shrimp I'm biting right now? It is a possibility. And again, not 100%, but again, I don't know what the actual numbers are. So that's the point where I'm coming from, because the cigarette butt, it's going to affect, wildlife. I've seen autopsies done of seagulls. Well, in the stomach of a seagull, there's cigarette butts. And again, it doesn't break down, and it's not good for anybody to eat. I can't think of one good thing that comes from people smoking. Every time I go to the doctor, the first thing the doctor asks me, do you smoke, Howard? I said, no, I don't. And, the only thing I can think that happens good from people buying cigarettes is the tax it generates. That's the only thing that good that happens from people buying cigarettes is the sales tax. Looking at the last time I was here, there was a vote, and I was a little taken back that it didn't pass. I was taken back. I put a lot of time and energy, and right now I think I've been down here over 120 times at Isle of Palms from my house up in Monk's Corners. Sometimes I focus on the beach, sometimes I focus on the boulevard, sometimes I focus in municipal parking. So, but it's over 120 times this year, and you got to remember, 2 months or 8 weeks, I didn't come down because of recovery from surgery, being out of state for funeral, or sick in bed. So I missed 8 weeks down here, and the numbers from the totals are just unbelievable. I would ask that when you're considering banding stuff, to look at the overall picture, just not what's happening today with it, but what's happening for the future, making this place better for the future generations. And that's what, I got to consider. What I do is I try to set the example for everybody, for younger people, for older people. I get a lot of comments when I'm walking the beach. Do I get paid to do this? I said, no, I volunteer. I don't get paid a dime. So it's all volunteer work. I would ask that, or I should say, I would like to invite every member of the City Council this next season to meet up with me one morning and go for a walk with me to see what I do, to see the numbers. I know the first year I did this, in the first year and a half, I'd say, I picked up stuff and threw it away. Just threw it away. Didn't even count it. Didn't take pictures. Threw it away. And then with the coordination of Susan and Katrina, I got involved with doing the beach sweeps, and everything got documented. And my numbers from that are just staggering. But the worst thing right now is the 4,644 cigarette butts off of the beach. I would hope that when you look to consider possible votes in the future, the impact that is having on everything around. How much of the island is built up off of cigarette butts? I don't know. Don't know. But I know it does get into the water system and it affects sea life. But again, I would like to say, invite everybody one time, come spring or summer, meet up with me at the Sea Turtle, and we go from there. And whether I go down the boulevard, get on the beach, you'll be awed what I find on a regular basis. But when I walked the beach tonight, right before the meeting, 85 pieces off the beach, 35 of those are 34 of those are cigarette butts tonight when I got down here. I don't like to sit around idle. I like to be doing something constructive. So that 34 tonight is included in that 4,644 items. But again, I would like to coordinate with everybody on City Council to pair up with me sometime You have my number, my information in the minutes and the notes. Best way to get a hold of me is texting me. And but I'm down here all the time, and I think going with me one time and to see what I do and understand what I do. And, you know, the one thing is, whatever I do, I want to be the best at it. I don't want to be second place. I don't want to be third place. I want to be first place, number one. And, but I know, any thoughts, questions, city council members?
Thank you very much for what you do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Yep.
Kelly Thorbenson, South Carolina Aquarium.
Hello again.
Good evening, Kelly Thorvalson, South Carolina Aquarium. Thank you for allowing me to comment on the smoking ordinance. I was contacted earlier in the year by a large church youth group that wanted to do a service project over the summer. And so I coordinated almost 500 people to do a litter sweep. And we swept 80% of the Isle of Palms beachfront. It was an incredible effort. And a lot of planning went into it. It was like a wedding, lots of planning, and it was over in an hour, right? But in just 1 hour, over 400 children with about 80 adult chaperones cleaned up 1,455 cigarette butts from the beach. Now, without a doubt, the busy public areas of Isle of Palms beachfront did contain more butts, but even the residential sections where there's very little, if any, public parking still contained hundreds of cigarette butts. Each group that covered a 3 or 4 block span of beach picked up a minimum of 289 and up to 800 cigarette butts in 1 hour. That's 1 hour across the beach. So in addition to this church youth group, more youth groups like Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts are doing these types of cleanups. Not to mention all of the families with young children that join the Isle of Palms cleanup crew on Monday nights. Children, often very young children, are out on the beaches with the spirit of trying to protect the environment, cleaning up toxic cigarette butts that adults can't seem to figure out. That doesn't seem right to me. Having a beach smoking ban is an excellent compromise to the ordinance that included all town properties, as it would provide public areas for smoking while protecting the beach, which is the most critical area right at the water's edge. This council has done a tremendous amount of work over many, many months. I think 7 months maybe you guys have been working on this, vetting this issue, to really come down and hone down on what is best for the town to protect smokers and the environment. And I do understand that compromise is critical to both sides. Over 14,000 cigarette butts have been collected in beach sweeps on beachfront Isle of Palms this year. And those numbers represent a small fraction of what's actually being littered. The one beach sweep that we covered the entire Isle of Palms beachfront, that doesn't happen very often. It's usually very small sections of the beach. So 14,000 cigarettes. You guys, it's a giant number. I know numbers kind of just sort of get away from us, but 14,000 shouldn't be acceptable. And 14,000 actually represents 25% of all the litter that was picked up in those sweeps. So by enacting a smoking ban simply on beachfront, you're reducing your beach litter by 25%. 25%. That's a substantial number. Over 300 coastal communities in the U.S. have enacted smoking bans, and the data shows that they are successful and they're largely self-policed. So I think we have some models that we can really look to. Catching litterers in action is difficult. Educational campaigns are short-term and not effective at reducing the majority of cigarette litter. Beach raking would be detrimental to beach ecology. Enacting a smoking ban is the most effective way to reduce cigarette waste on the beach, to protect our oceans and the people that visit and live and call Isle of Palms home. Thank you for your leadership on this issue.
Thank you, Kelly. We allotted 30 minutes for citizens' comments. We've had 2 speakers, And I let them go longer than they are allowed because of their passion and for the work they've done on Isle of Palms. Is there anyone else who would like to have citizens' comments? Going once? Twice? Okay, moving on. Reports from standing committees. Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Start with cash balance says at 10/31/2019, total cash, all cashers, $20,976,000, as opposed to the same period for last year of 18 of $16,572,000. All the expenditures and revenues are about where they should be, with the exception of a couple of variances that are easily explained. For instance, property tax, very little of that's come in because that comes in December, January, and business licenses are due in April. So as time goes by, those numbers will square up to the budget. The unaudited fund balance, which we think the auditors are pretty certain about this, that we don't expect this number to change at 6/30/2019, was $19,792,000. October notes, 1/3 of fiscal year has passed, and financial results continue to generally track as expected. General fund revenues appear to be slightly ahead of the prior year, 135%, but the majority of the increases relates to the timing of first quarter revenues from the state of South Carolina, state aid tax, local loss from sales tax, and aid to subdivisions that were received a month earlier in fiscal year 20. Total general fund expenditures are slightly below those of the prior year, and the fiscal year budget for year 20 is a target of 33%. Year-to-date personnel costs are slightly below the 33% budget target, although year-to-date overtime expenses in police, fire, and public works are ahead of the budget due primarily to Hurricane Dorian. It is probable, right? Yes. Can I say that? Probable that the city will be able to recover some portion of the Dorian-related overtime from FEMA. Tourism revenues for the first 4 months of the fiscal year are about 1% below the prior year, with the exception of state accommodations tax revenues, which are 6% ahead of the first quarter. No other significant financial variances or trends were noted, and currently the forecast for the year is the same as the budget. Cash positions and fund balances are strong due to the city's good financial performance in fiscal year 19 and little spending on the major fiscal year 20 projects. Public safety building, all that's coming up. We're into that. Public safety building repair, fire truck purchases and fire truck refurb, and drainage. And then we just had our meeting a little while ago, and there are several motions that were passed. I'll turn over to the mayor to present those.
These were action items, the first of which was a recommendation from the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee for the city to approve a sponsorship from the Isle Palms Turtle Team, the Isle Palms Exchange Club, for a turtle hatching scavenger hunt in the amount of $6,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussions? I'll say one thing. I think it's a cool idea, event, educational thing, not only for our residents, but for our visitors. So again, that's my comment. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Agree.
Agreed. Okay. Hearing anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? It's unanimous. Thank you. Number 2, recommendation from the Public Safety Committee to approve an unbudgeted expenditure in amount not to exceed $10,000 for the purchase and installation of a surveillance
So
camera.
moved.
What kind of
Wait a
camera?
minute, it's a safety camera.
Safety. I was just getting ready to go back. Safety camera at Breach Inlet. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Unanimous. Recommendation from the Public Safety Committee to implement a reserve officer program in the Isle Palms Police Department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Recommendation from the Real Property Committee to apply to the Greenbelt program to use city allocation for the construction of an ADA-compliant beach walkover and observation deck at 42nd Avenue. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
This is a great move for the city to provide access and make our island inclusive.
Great.
Jay, I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's also important when we have a lot of flooding from different weather events that we have elevated ways to get across to the beach, and that I also hope that we will be vigorously exploring adding what our city administrator calls footbridges to other paths in between 21st and 40th because of those times when people have very limited access without getting their feet
Thank you. Councilman Bell.
I just want to say, recognize the people in the audience weren't all here for the Ways and Means meeting. We happen to have these meetings back to back. There was detailed explanation of all of these items in the prior meeting. This one, just noting some of the people in the audience, was to use Greenbelt funding to replace the blue mat at 42nd, which is still public safety access with ePay Wood access, and to construct it in a way that our public safety vehicles can continue to use that path, and also to expand the amount of available handicap parking, recognizing that it's a key access point for our disabled citizens and visitors.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Unanimous. Consideration of an award to Insight Group in the amount of $26,840 for the construction management services for the public safety building repair project.
So moved.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. For those in the audience, that building is 11 years old. It has some significant problems. It cost $6.5 million to build in 2008, and I think I heard it's going to cost almost $6.3 million, minus a couple of dollars, to repair. Just so y'all know what we're doing. This time we're going to have oversight. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Unanimous.
This time we're going to have better oversight.
Better oversight. Thank you.
More better oversight.
More better.
More oversight.
More better.
More better.
Consideration of an approval of an amount not to exceed $100,000 for the 12-month rental of one double-wide and one triple-wide temporary office for the police and fire departments to use during the rehabilitation of the public safety building. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. Again, for those in the audience, this has to do with the renovations, major renovations of the building down there where we can house our public safety personnel in a healthy, safety way. So, yes, ma'am.
We will go through the competitive bidding process that's required of us by the code. This is just a timing constraint based on the fact that council does not meet in December, and this would allow me to execute a contract after the bidding process concludes.
I couldn't have said it any better. Thank you very much for clarification. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Unanimous.
There ends my report.
There ends your report. Thank you, sir.
Done.
Public Safety Committee.
Yes, sir. The Public Safety Committee met Monday, November 4th, at 9 a.m. All committee members were present. Under citizens' comments, we had Ms. Susan Page from 5 Forest Trail talk about one of the upcoming ordinance that we'll be discussing later on dilapidated structures. We had more discussion on that, and we brought that ordinance to City Council for first reading again tonight. We had an update on South Carolina Department of Transportation to conduct a speed study on Palm Boulevard between 10th and 21st Avenue, and they're going to go ahead and they'll continue to work on that. So depending on whether a change in speed limit between those areas is going to be up to them, and basically based on what they come out of it with their safety evaluations. We'll go through and do that. That'll be coming up in the next meeting. We are going to go through an update on the implementation of the 4-foot off-pavement rule on Palm Boulevard between 41st and 53rd Avenues. We've seen a lot of growth in parking in that north area of the island since we've initiated parallel parking on Palm. So we had a lot of issues, people parking too close to the roads, where the doors are swinging out into the right-of-way. So we're going to go ahead and make those changes where we can update or implement those changes, make it the same as it is along Palm Boulevard. Y'all did receive packets, talked about a different beach parking plan. I'm not sure if I want to hit that at this time now, or what's that?
It's under your report, so we would need a motion to approve those changes so that we can revise and update the beach plan.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, now, thank you.
Okay. So, yes, so as part of our discussion, we had a report on revisions to the beach parking plan. I don't know if you want to pick up on this and take off, because I know you have a presentation.
Yeah, we,
And just, I didn't mean to hear it one more time. So the Public Safety Committee's been going through, kind of did a post-season evaluation of some of our parking throughout the island. While it is a living thing, it can continuously make changes. These are some of the changes that we see that we can make immediately without too many changes to our code, and too many changes throughout the island. But we'll continue to do this every year until we feel that we have a situation where it's public safety is paramount.
correct. As Councilmember Buchanan was saying, we conducted a very thorough evaluation of the changes that we implemented this year. They worked out pretty well. We went through all the information on tickets, and we saw where the problem areas were, also gathering feedback from the community throughout the summer about what some of the issues that they were experiencing or seeing around their community. And we came out with, through the work with the Public Safety Committee, we talked about it several meetings, we came out with 2 recommendations to make changes for the upcoming season. Right now, the city is enforcing those regulations year-round. So that was another change that was implemented this year. That worked out pretty well. So here you can see that the proposed revisions to the parking plan, it includes implementing parallel parking only on the existing beach parking zones located on 3rd Avenue and 9th Avenue. And here it shows where those areas are. They're currently designated as beach parking. We heard some concerns from residents in that area that felt that the right-of-way in some of those locations was wide enough to accommodate perpendicular parking. However, it meant that some of these vehicles were actually encroaching onto private property. The intent all along, I looked back at the minutes, the intent for the parking in those areas, which include, again, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 9th, was for it to be parallel parking all along. Somehow that wasn't signed properly last year, and we want to go ahead and fix that. So that is the change number 1, and the map actually depicts what the existing zones that would change. It would only require us to purchase 12 signs, 12 new parallel parking only signs. If you recall, they're the small signs that go under the existing beach parking, so we would not be adding any poles. We would just be adding that small sign to the existing beach parking signs. So that is the first recommendation from staff. Then the other issue that we discussed was, like Councilmember Buchanan was saying earlier, with the implementation of parallel parking between 21st and 40th, we have seen parking extend past 40th. We had not seen that before. Usually parking would stay within those blocks, but now we're seeing that extend past 40th. So we would propose to, again, extend the 4 feet off rule from 41st to 53rd, and also require parallel parking only. The reason why we're stopping at 53rd Avenue is there is a swale ditch starting at 53rd Avenue through 57th that would not allow parking 4 feet off pavement. It is important that we count those parking spaces as part of the city's public beach access and public beach access definition to provide public access to the beach to visitors. Therefore, we would not be signing it. We don't think that we're going to have a lot of parking migrate to that side, but that allows, not signing it and not requiring 4 feet off pavement in that section of road allows us to count those parking spaces towards the city's public access definition. As you all recall, we received federal and state funding for beach renourishment based on the city's ability to provide public access to the beach, and we think that's very important. We do not want to do anything that threatens that public access definition. Again, this also ensures safe parking away from the pavement. As Councilmember Buchanan said, sometimes they park too close to the road, and as the doors swing, they're basically on the road. And also parallel parking, we have already established that it's the safest way to park island-wide. So those are the two recommendations to make this year. According to the code, these changes do not need to be approved by ordinance. Council has the discretion to revise the plan on an ongoing basis. We've already checked with SCDOT. We do not require a revised encroachment permit. So it really speeds up the process by which we can implement this and have it ready for first of the year. We're talking about 12 signs for the first change, and then 12 signs again for this change. We would purchase them in-house and have our current staff install them.
Great update on that. We've had a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
For the area past the main entrance to Wild Dunes, it had been previously brought up some concerns about the footpaths from Wild Dunes being blocked by cars. Is that addressed?
Yes,
We've addressed that previously.
This year we installed signs blocking off 15 to 20 feet off of each side of those access paths to ensure that people who are crossing have enough visibility.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yes, sir. Councilman.
Thank you. Two questions. One, and I'll ask them both, and then let you answer. Do you have an estimate on the impact to the total number of access spots by making the change from 41st to 53rd? Or we're not moving to, that's already parallel. It's just the 4 feet off. Okay, so that we're really not impacting spots except on 3rd, 4th through 9th, but that was already the plan. And then the recommendation from our public safety, it sounds like this is all coming from our public safety professionals from fire and police. So
yeah, it has been very well vetted, and it comes as a recommendation from, when I say staff, is we've had multiple meetings with both fire chief and police chief, and also they brought in the comments from their staff. Beach services officers provided a lot of information because they're the eyes on the ground. And, yeah, we have vetted this a lot.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a guesstimate of how many spaces we will lose? I would imagine compared to the amount of parking we provide overall, it's a very small number.
I can look that number up and let you all know. Again, I think that the numbers that we have, I believe, assumed parallel parking because we established way back that it was the safest way. So I would need to go back and check and confirm whether those numbers assume parallel parking. We've had that question come up at public safety before, and my gut reaction is that they're the same, but I can double check and let you all know.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Who should I say? Any opposed? Nays? Hearing none, unanimous.
Perfect. Moving on, we did have some discussion about the safety camera at Breach Inlet. This camera will allow our public safety, both our fire and our police departments, to visualize the Breach Inlet water area. So we do have a number of calls down there and distress calls. Normally from folks who are passing by or driving past across the Breach Inlet and call in to the emergency services. So we can get, as soon as we get that phone call, we can actually pull up the video feed and see where and track if there is somebody in distress and track them where they're going. So that'll move forward. And we were able to do it, like I said, it was not a budgeted item this year, but we were able to secure funds from savings throughout our budget process. And now we'll be able to get it up and going, hopefully before the next beach season, where normally we wouldn't have. Moving on to, we had an update of our True Grid. Obviously, we've talked about this previously, but we haven't been able to implement it just because of the beach season. True Grid is a company that's going to donate a parking pad for us, basically along the right-of-way on Palm Boulevard, and help stabilize the areas. And it's a permeable surface, helps stabilize the areas, helps delineate those areas as well. so you can actually see where each parking spot is. But they're going to go through and donate up to 4 parking spaces, and hopefully we can get that utilized and installed in this off-season. It's in the areas between 25th and 26th Avenue. So it actually go through and it'll give us the ability to actually delineate where 4 feet is off the road in those parking spots as well. So we're excited about that. We're just trying to line up a contractor to do that work. The city administrator gave us an update on our malware intrusion and the steps to taken to mitigate the issue, and hopefully that it does not happen again. And in order to avoid this problem in the future, a cybersecurity policy will be developed, including training for the staff and limiting the use of USBs on city computers. But lastly, she reported that there was no sign of data exfiltration out of the city. We had some discussion of implementing a reserve officer program again. As you know, we did have a reserve officer program one time, and one of our firemen actually served as a reserve officer for one time. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and utilize this at very little cost to the city to actually get another officer on the street. We have to have made some consideration of a resolution authorizing the consumption of beer and wine at the Holiday Street Festival in this December. We have to go through, from this point forward, we've authorized it previously, but for each event, we have to go through now and authorize it for each event. So we'll be doing this again for the Connector Run, for the Spring Fest, this event. So this will be coming across here. It's just that we need to authorize one for each event as it comes through. I'd like to go ahead and make that motion now.
Second.
It's on our agenda.
Section 10, introduction of new bills resolution.
Yeah, that's a new resolution. Okay, yes. I'll do it later.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Yes. That was basically the end of our report. The next meeting is scheduled for January 13th. If anybody has any questions?
Any questions? Hearing none. Moving on. Public Works.
It's me. Public Works met on Thursday, November 14th at 8 a.m. All members were present and appropriate staff. We approved the previous month's minutes, and we had no citizens' comments. We had our department reports, and Director Pitts stated that garbage and debris are up, and Assistant Robert Acero gave us a very in-depth look at what he has been doing, which he has been so busy. I'm just so grateful we brought him on, but he has been working with looking at the buildings, handling front beach and restrooms, working with drainage, looking at the landscaping right-of-ways, connector, I'm getting that cleared out. He's handling getting the dumpster and compactor cleaned, and attending the public safety building renovation meetings, as well as Ways and Means and these meetings. So, well done that we have brought somebody on with another set of eyes to handle all these things that are just really, it's been very helpful. Under old business, we got an update on Phase 3 drainage, the small internal projects, the engineering and work has been done, and that should start, those jobs should start soon, I think first quarter of the new year. And drainage Phase 3, do you want to give an update?
I think Councilmember Ferenz had requested that Douglas gave the committee a quick update on where we are with permitting, and he's prepared to do that now.
Oh, great. Douglas?
Name and address. City File Palms.
The city staff, along with the engineers, have been meeting with OCRM representatives and various other representatives about this project. There is a lingering issue with where OCRM will declare they have jurisdiction. It could be that they only have jurisdiction right where we are installing these gates, or it could be that they have jurisdiction all the way back through these ditches and into the neighborhoods. We don't think that it will impact whether or not the project is approved, but we think that it could impact the mitigation requirements. You have to mitigate for every square foot that you disturb. And if we're counting the square footage of all these ditches going back all the way into the neighborhoods, it could get considerable and more than we had anticipated. So there was a meeting last Thursday to physically show OCRM exactly what we're talking about. It was a good meeting from my understanding, and we're waiting to hear back what their judgment is from that meeting and on the issue. So, we're kind of in a wait-and-see stage now, but it could have, implications on our mitigation down the road. Any questions about that?
Yeah. Douglas, does that mean that we can no longer dredge those ditches?
I don't think so. I think from what I hear, we are going to, basically the public good will trump the environmental issues if there are some. So it's that we would be authorized to do it. It's just that we would potentially have to pay into a mitigation fund or come up with mitigating projects that would offset the environmental damage that we're doing. So as I understand, it's not an issue of whether or not we get permission, it's just the cost of mitigation.
And the county does an awful lot of the ditch maintenance. So how does that,
well, so
do they have to mitigate too, or is it all on us to mitigate?
There is currently, so we have been stopping, the county and the city has been stopping our maintenance, where we were kind of told in an informal meeting on the side of the road with Donnie and OCRM that we shouldn't be going out into those marsh areas, and they kind of agreed where they would stop. So we haven't been maintaining in these areas, the county hasn't been maintaining in these areas, so we're getting into we're kind of getting into uncharted territory. They have indicated that there is a general maintenance permit that has been requested that would have an effect on all communities throughout the state on maintenance. That permit hasn't been issued yet, but they suspect that it'll be issued in December. And we are told that after this project, the maintenance will no longer be an issue. That basically we will be, once we establish kind of the baseline of what the system will be, we will be able to maintain it without going through an arduous permitting process each time we maintain them.
And that's drainage phase 3, and we're hoping 4 and 5 as well.
Well, and each of those, when we install a structure, which is what we're doing, the installation of the structure will always require a permit. But it's going to be this ongoing, just cleaning out what we have, that will be covered by this global general permit.
Douglas, I'm glad Sandy asked that question. Health, safety in our roads, health of the standing water, safety when our fire trucks can't get out of Station 2, and roads. I mean, we've got residents who can't get to and from their houses. So, I mean, you would think that would trump.
And I think it does. I mean, I do think that they will, again, I think they're going to permit it. They're going to authorize us to do it. It's just how much acreage did we disturb in our project? That's the judgment that we're really waiting to hear.
And last question for me, I promise. And there's a lot of emails going back and forth talking about the heights of the outfalls and the future sea level rise. Are we planning, looking out to the future, like 2045, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a fully loaded question.
I'm sorry.
And
It had to be said.
From what we understand from the engineers, there will always be the storm event that overwhelms these structures. Right. Hurricane Joaquin was their directive to establish the basis for what we want to be protected up to that level. So if we get a major hurricane, that's still going to overwhelm the system, and you're going to have standing water. But an event like Joaquin, we should be protected against. And of course, depending on what sea level, how quickly sea level does rise. I mean, we have we're protecting ourselves up to what's an abnormal event today, but I think the point could be made that in 50 years from now, that will no longer be an abnormal event. That'll be a common occurrence. But the engineers really did pick the elevation that they could reasonably protect to. So if you go much higher than that, we end up with a full, basically a wall at the back of the island, which would be cost prohibitive for, the frequency that we're seeing it now. But, it may be that 30, 40 years from now, somebody, not us, will have to provide protection at a higher level.
Thank you for answering those questions. Anyone else?
I have one. So timeline on this permitting, I mean, did they give you any indication of?
They have always indicated it would be about a year, and right now we're just trying to figure out, the engineers want to give themselves the most, the best chance for being successful in getting the permits, so that's why we're kind of getting our ducks in a row to file the application now, but once we file it, we expect it could be a year.
Anyone else? Okay, back to your report.
Thank you, Douglas. That's a lot. All right, so next, we discussed an update on the connector and Palm Boulevard sidewalk expansion project. Desiree, you want to give a brief?
Sure, yes, those, both the Ocean Boulevard improvement project, which involves replacing 6 pipe culverts on Ocean Boulevard between 3rd and 1st, that project and the project for the sidewalk extension from Connector and Palm Boulevard are both out for bid. The bids are expected to come back to the county. These are projects that are being handled and managed by the county. The Connector sidewalk and the Connector and Palm Boulevard sidewalk is being funded by CTC funding that we were granted a couple years ago. We submitted a grant application and that was approved. And then the other project is being funded partially by the city and FEMA. Those 2 projects, like I was saying earlier, they are out in the procurement process. Those bids are expected in between the 1st and 2nd week of December, and depending on how those bids come back, they'll be ready to execute a contract. Both projects are supposed, and it's included in the bid documents, that they need to be completed before spring.
Next, we were unfortunately told that we were denied CTC program funding for improvements to the Waterway Boulevard multi-use path, other programs, projects went ahead of us. And we just discussed the Ocean Boulevard, and then we had discussions related to the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission becoming a department of the city. And we discussed that, and I don't know if, do we need to go further with that? Ted, do you want to have some discussion on that?
Since you asked.
No, it's not a motion.
Only to say that last month there were a series of questions directed at the chair and the mayor that were to be answered at that meeting, and they were not.
Okay, but since, have you feel like your questions have been answered since then?
No.
No?
May I give some answers?
Absolutely.
So your first question was about a full-service city. And I look at our city and I see our fire department, our police department, our recreation department, our public works department, and yes, a water and sewer department. So I think we're pretty full service for the first question.
May I respond?
Yes, sir, please.
A full-service city, by definition, includes water and sewer. Most citizens in Isle of Palms view that the Water and Sewer Authority is in fact an enterprise of the city. It is not. To have a full-service city, go talk to the folks in Aiken or Greenville or Charleston or Rock Hill. You have fire, water, public safety, public works. It's inclusive. Our situation is not.
Okay. Number 2, why wouldn't you want the control of our destiny related to these 2 key services? Well, regardless of whether the Water and Sewer is a department or remains a commission, is still based on a charge. I mean, it's a nonprofit. They charge the same amount if we ran it we'd have to charge the same amount. It's a non-profit making organization. So, it's just more government, the way I look at it, and the way I've talked to the Water and Sewer. I also talked to Clay Duffy, who's the Water and Sewer Commissioner for Mount Pleasant, Chairman, who says, in 1991 is when we took it over, 1992 is we made it a commission. And he goes, there was a reason why y'all did that, and there's a reason why we did that. And he goes, why change it? I think Councilman Ward was instrumental in 1990 going to the beach company and proposing the city buying the water company, water and sewer company.
That's correct.
Anything else you want to expand on that, or?
Well, just one Charlie Way, they just nominated me to city council because I was a CPA to go down there and beat up on Charlie Way. And so he said he wanted the city. He didn't even know what he wanted for it. He wanted $1.6 million for it, and the city authorized me to offer him $1.3 million. And so I said, "Well, the city authorized me to offer you $1.3 million." And he said, "Okay." Anything else, Jimmy? No, sir. And so we came back, we got it, and then we figured it was so big that we needed a commission, and it was just too much work for us. And so that's why one of the reasons we had the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission was formed.
So the point of the question is we don't have direct influence over what happens with regards to water and sewer, two of the most important services that are provided in any municipality. And this isn't picking on our commission. This is the case in commissions and where full-service cities are operated throughout the state, throughout the country. You don't have direct influence, no matter the minor thing you want to do or something as significant as what was proposed recently with $16 million in bonding, the future development of the enterprise that's problematic, and we've discussed this at great length.
Jimmy?
Yes, sir. Councilman Bell.
Just to Councilmember Kinghorn's comments, I don't think it's an indictment of the existing commission. I will say, sitting up here for 2 years, anticipating having a meeting with Water and Sewer where we don't have control. It's taken over 20 months, no meeting. It was before us for $16 million with little detail. And when I look at things, I want to understand at the core what that detail represents, right? So we still have 1,400 septic systems. We sit up here and have massive debates on how do we get all residents connected to sewer systems with rising sea levels and the other issues that we have. Then we defer back to a Water and Sewer Commission who came before us with $16 million without the breakdown of how much of that $16 million is for necessary replacement or repairs in Wild Dunes versus future infrastructure for a connection that we can't figure out sitting up here at this table. So, I mean, I struggle with puzzles that have missing pieces, and for me, it's a puzzle with a missing piece. We don't have any control. The only authority we have is as a funding body. So while the history lessons are nice, looking forward, the amounts are staggering. And without this council or future councils having some engagement beyond the sidelines for whether or not we can even get a meeting with Water and Sewer, for me, is completely unacceptable.
Y'all, anyone else on that? So you went into question 3. Who would support?
It was my segue.
Segue to question 3. On a personal level, given the information we have here, there was a person across the street who was not forthcoming with information. Previously, there was not a lot of information provided. When council did finally get the information, it was at the last minute. That has been addressed, and the information will be provided in the future. And I also think it's prudent for this council this coming year to think about having several representatives attend the Water and Sewer Commission. I think we need to be part of that. We need to have a voice in that. It's like when we had storm events and we had OPCOMs and we had everybody come together, but yet we didn't have the water and sewer coming over and joining us. that's changing. We've got new communication across the street. I'm very pleased with it, but it's something I think council can look at. Number 4, why wouldn't you want to cross-train economics of scale across departments? And we look at that like our police department and our fire department and our public works department and our recreation department. You know, they don't cross-train each other, and nor would we cross-train with the water and sewer. I mean, there are professionals over there who run that. I can't imagine that recreation is going to go over and work on that, or public works is going to go over there and cross-train when they have their hands filled, or the police department or the fire department. So again, cross-training was kind of a far-fetched one, but it's a good question, and I commend you for asking such.
Well,
Let's go ahead and fill in.
Contrary to being far-fetched, anybody that's worked in a professional environment understands the benefit and the economies of scale of cross-training. And if you're not doing it, you're missing opportunities. Now, all but the rec chairman, who really isn't directly involved in this issue, it's important that the citizens hear this. Again, it's been discussed at previous meetings. All of the city department heads have noted very clearly in their own areas of influence the benefit it would have if water and sewer was operated as a city department, right? Not Ted Kinghorn, not anybody else in this council. The professionals that run our departments, because they understand what other cities do, they have more experience than many of us, have indicated this would be preferable for a whole host of reasons.
Thank you. Why wouldn't you want to be directly responsible for safety and fire to citizens related to water? It kind of goes back to maybe having somebody from the city council attend their meetings, and maybe someone from the fire department. I was told that there are times when a fire hydrant is frozen, and they call it a fire, water and sewer, they go down, open it up. This comes back to that communication and having involvement with two. Yes, sir. Mr. Kinghorn.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that it?
No, we got more. Why wouldn't you want to be directly responsible for the safety that we were just talked about? Why wouldn't you want to be fully responsible for the water and sewer finance rates, debt, revenue, and the quality of services? If water and sewer were a department, the cost of the service would not change unless it was the intent of the city to raise rates to offset some other costs within the city. Refer to question 1. It's a non-profit. Money that they charge is for the running of the business they have over there. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Point of order, is there a motion, or is just...
No, this is
these are questions he's asked.
This was on the agenda.
It's a discussion, and
Yeah,
I
it's a
appreciate
discussion.
the dialogue, and I hope all the members of council do, and while it might take a little time, I hope that our citizens do.
Where's it on the agenda?
There are...
It was on our Public Works agenda, and it's in the
Why are we
report.
quibbling over this when we're going to wrap it
Yeah,
up?
we're going to wrap it up.
Please. There are many examples throughout the state. One classic one in this nonprofit characterization is when DuPont ran the Savannah River site. It's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, and they said we only make $1 a year. They employed 13,000 people on average, and they said they made $1 a year. What do you think the effect of a multi-billion-dollar program is year in, year out of a government contract, and how that affects your bottom line throughout your corporation? The fact is, the last time there was major debt that was approved by the city for the Water and Sewer Authority, shortly thereafter, and of course there were recommended rates, but after that, guess what? The rates went up. So whether the rates go up or down, whether the services is excellent or poor, I would rather have the city, that's directly responsible for the other services, run the operation. Let me close by saying this is pretty indicative of concerns that I've had for the 4 years I've served. There seems to be a lack of interest in reform and innovation by council. And all you have to do is go as far as your staff and be open-minded enough and ask them, what are best practices? Where can we engage in reform that can make the city operate better? And where can we innovate to provide better services for the city? Thank you.
And you said right into the last question, so thank you very much.
Okay.
Anyone else?
And I'm going back
Yes,
to my
ma'am.
report.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think in the coming year, there will likely be lots of dialogue with the new council regarding the water and sewer, and hopefully the communication will greatly improve, and maybe this is, the best path would be for it to become a department of the city, but that's going to take a lot of people coming together and deciding that that's the best way to go. After that, we went into new business, which is consideration of an ordinance to ban smoking on the beach. We had lots of discussion, and I know it's on our agenda later, so I don't know if we want to discuss that now or
Probably after the motion's made.
Okay. So miscellaneous, our next meeting is Thursday, January 16th at 8 a.m. And that concludes my final Public Works report. Thank you.
We thank you for your service. And just as Councilman Buchanan said, and you addressed about a second reading in the ordinance on the special council meeting in December. And again, we're going to go to our agenda 2019-19, which will be read later on, and then we'll come back to that second reading.
Yes, first reading.
So that ends your report?
That ends my report.
Thank you for your many years of service to the Isle of Palms.
Thank you, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. Did we not vote on this ordinance?
The smoking ordinance?
Yes.
We have adjusted it, so now it is strictly banning smoking on the beach.
And we'll discuss this when it comes up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You want me to discuss it now or when it comes up
when
for
it-
first reading?
yes.
Just as a reminder, for first reading,
We
it's
have to
usually by
make a
title
motion,
only,
right?
so make sure that there's a motion to discuss so that there can be discussion.
We will discuss the scheduling of a second reading.
That will come after the vote.
So you're deferring taking action on the motion to include second reading of that ordinance until after the vote for first reading, correct?
Right, it's number 10.
So that ended your report. Are there any questions for Public Works?
Please.
Okay, moving on to recreation.
Sorry. I was enthralled. Oh, no. Shoot, I lost my place. Sorry. Well, I can just recap. I think what we spent most of our time at recreation talking, a lot of our time talking about a pool, the possibilities of a pool and getting started and preparing for a possible referendum in 2020. So that conversation continued. We received bids on, here it is. Let's see. We heard from our director, a recreation department director, about, she gave her report. And we talked about the Holiday Street Festival, which is coming up on December 7th, and I hope that everybody will be able to attend. It's always awesome, and we are making plans because that coincides with Pearl Harbor Remembrance, that we will be recognizing that with the VFW, which I think is an excellent way to handle that and draw extra attention to the Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. Gym is closed this week while the floor is being replaced. The gym floor is being replaced, and we discussed that our director actually was not satisfied with the floor as it was originally put in and fought to have it redone. So we appreciate that, making sure that it's up to our standards. We talked about what we've already approved, the turtle hatchling scavenger hunt, and also discuss the possibilities for other partnership opportunities with the Isle of Palms Exchange Club, including perhaps the possibility of access to the water for public kayaking as an opportunity down the road. And we also discussed the results of an RFP for potential franchise agreements for surfing instruction on the beach. We had an executive session related to that. No actions were taken, and the committee will continue to evaluate proposals received for beachfront franchise agreement. And therein lies my report.
Great report. Any questions? Hearing none, moving on. Personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Personnel Committee met on Tuesday, November 12th at 4:30 p.m. All committee members were present. We did not have any citizen comments, and we jumped right into old business, starting with the consideration of reappointments for the city's boards and commissions. For a little background, this committee over the course of the last year made some decisions about how we reappoint boards and commissions. These are the Planning Commission, the ATAX Committee, and the Board of Zoning Appeals. And these boards and commissions have this unofficial rule that if someone is appointed and they wish to be reappointed when their term is up, that we simply say, sure, we'll reappoint you. And that tradition has continued for many, many years. I don't know going how far back, because interest in these positions has typically been very low. We've been very fortunate in the last handful of years in that there's been very high interest from the residents and the community in serving on these boards and commissions, which is fantastic, but it presents a problem when you have an unofficial policy. We decided that we would terminate that policy, but we did want to give some sort of notification to the members who have dutifully served us very well, I might add, during their tenures. And so rather than reappoint or deny reappointment, our policy henceforth is going to be that after serving consecutive terms, your position will be open and you may reapply for that, but we will go through the interview process again with everyone who applies so that we at least have the opportunity to consider new applicants for the positions that are being open. So that's the new policy that we're moving forward with. It goes into effect next year. So this year, we are recommending that we reappoint all of the individuals who have been serving on those committees. And I'd like to make this in the form of a motion that we reappoint for the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee, Malcolm Burgess, Sally Mulig, David Nelson, and Rusty Williamson. For the Board of Zoning Appeals, Elizabeth Campson and Carolyn Holscher. And for the Planning Commission, Ron Denton and Lisa Safford.
Second.
Yep. Thank you.
Just
I'll
some clarity. These recommendations will be ratified in January when the new council members-elect take office. Those will be presented again to City Council in the special meeting scheduled for December 3rd. Other nominations may be entertained as well, and that vote becomes final in January, just for the record.
Appreciate it.
Okay, you got a motion and a second?
Mayor, just a question. When we went through this, and I'd just like clarity on policy versus process, right? So policy's coming out of Personnel Committee. Understand policy recommendations come from there, but it would lead one to believe that policy vote doesn't happen. And the other thing we talked about, because many of us were new at the last time we did this, and we rubber stamped. I mean, we didn't know people. And I had simple questions, attendance records. I don't personally want to just rubber stamp without knowledge of those things. If we have members that quote, dutifully served but really didn't show up, I think it's important information for us. So at least assure me that we're vetting that information through the Personnel Committee and not just moving forward with another rubber stamp. So I think one of those questions might be a question of Desiree in terms of policy. Mm-hmm. I would have had an expectation we'd vote on policy and then move forward, but.
And I think that is the goal for the Personnel Committee starting next year, to develop a very structured policy about what the expectations are as these members serve. This year, I think it was decided to it's been the practice of the city. If people are interested in being reappointed, I don't think that the city has had an issue with people who are serving in these boards that don't show up. I think we would be aware of those.
Yeah, I'm not implying that, by the way.
But I think that is some, part of the role of the Personnel Committee of establishing a policy moving forward that looks at all of those things, and it's just not, avoid reappointing people just because they express interest in doing that.
Mr. Chair, we've also went back to the various committees and commissions and asked for any recommendations they might have in what changes we should make to the policies. Should there be tenure? Should there be, where you can only have 2 terms or 3 terms? Those sorts of things. We went back to the committees, and I think we only got 1 or 2 that came back to us, but I think in the next year, the Personnel Committee will go forward with that and get some real recommendations from the committees themselves as to what kind of policy that needs to look like.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We had a motion, a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Unanimous. Thank you, sir.
And then related to that, we're in the happy position of welcoming a new committee member who is joining us from the Planning Commission. So we do have a vacancy that will be appointed recommended by the Personnel Committee and then appointed by this council. Because that was just determined a couple weeks ago, we're opening up the application process through December 31st. We've already had 10 to 12 applications for that one spot. I told you, interest has grown significantly among our community. But if anyone in the audience is interested or knows someone who would be a strong candidate for the Planning Commission, please encourage them to apply. But not too many people.
The application is available online under boards and commissions. And it's an online application, very easy to use. And
Yep, so I'll have at least 11 people to say no to. So I will be chairman and heartbreaker of the Personnel Committee. And let's see, moving on, the city administrator presented us with the city's council orientation handbook and training handbook. And I don't think that's been sent out electronically to council yet.
It has not. It has not. We'll make some of the changes that were discussed at that meeting. Waiting on legal to review. Our goal is to distribute that by the September 3rd meeting. That way, everybody has somewhat of a little bit of over a month to review and come to that special city council orientation and legal briefing in January, ready with a lot of questions for us.
Great.
Is there a test?
There should be.
We can make one. Yes, for Randy.
It looks great, and I think it's going to be a great asset for years to come, for everyone up here and for those who are elected as well. Yeah, well done, staff. We did have some discussion related to government structure. One related to the length of time between election and appointment, or rather swearing in. I know that the city of Mount Pleasant does their swearing in days, if not a couple weeks after election, and we had some discussion about that change as well as the plurality, and I know that no decisions were made. It was just a discussion, and I know that in 2020, not being an election year, is a great time to have the discussions around any changes that we might want to make, but those discussions will be forthcoming with this council.
Good.
And our meeting ended. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, January 14th at 4:30 p.m. And so ends my report.
Any questions? Hearing none, moving on. Real property.
Real property. Real property was held 9 a.m. Wednesday, November 6th. All council members were present. We approved the previous month's minutes. There were no citizens' comments. On comments from the marina tenants, Jay Clark from Morgan Creek Grill came to clarify the position of Morgan Creek Grill, that they close their doors for business until they can find out what is going on with the lease, and stated that he intended to continue with the bid process until such time he was notified that he was not in contention for that. Michael Femm thanked the council members for their service. That was all that was stated there. No old business. We had an update on marina items, in particular the permitting of the marina docks and the water sports dock occupied by tidal waves. It was reported that there were no public comments received during the joint OCRM and Army Corps of Engineers application. There was no update. I don't believe we have one since then regarding that process, but we are going through a lengthy and laborious process to get the permitting done, thanks to OCRM and the way this works. So we're waiting on, and we did not receive any public comments, so we got through the 30-day public commentary period without any issues. On the call for offers for the marina restaurant lease proposals, Administrator Fregoso stated that John Chalfie from Lee & Associates will attend a special city council meeting, which we did have on November 7th. I think folks are interested. The majority of those discussions are executive session discussions because we're in the process of dealing with finances and bid responses. On the update on the public safety building rehab project, I'm not going to belabor that. We discussed that previously in this meeting with the RFPs as well. We also discussed the Charleston County Greenbelt program funding, and I'll restate those applications are due at the end of January. So we're completely compliant to not losing money in that program and moving forward, hopefully, with getting a very nice walkway built at 42nd Avenue. And miscellaneous business, all tenants were current with rent with the exception of Morgan Creek Grill, who also owes an additional $41,114 based on Section 3B of their lease.
51. 51.
Did I misstate that?
Yeah.
It's a reading issue. $51,114. And a letter had been sent to the Morgan Creek Grill for payment. Briefly discussed the next meeting date, but that's obviously in the air with movement towards January. We went into executive session to, in accordance with 30-4-70A2, to discuss negotiation incident to the proposed contractual arrangements related to the marina lease, restaurant lease. We went into executive session, no decisions were made. And with that, we adjourned at 9:56. And we don't currently have a next meeting date, correct?
We do.
We do, based on what you sent out this week?
Correct. It
Okay.
will be the third Wednesday in January, which is the 15th of January at 9 a.m.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Hearing none. Moving on. Thank you, Councilman Bell. Reports from city officers, boards, commissions. Accommodations Tax Advisory, no meeting in November. Board of Zoning Appeals, minutes are attached. Planning Commission, minutes are attached. Report from special or joint committees, none. Petitions received, referred, disposed of, none. Bills already in possession. And introduction of new bills, resolutions, proclamations. And before we get there, if we want to discuss anything concerning first readings by title only, council needs to make a motion to discuss and
suspend the rules of order.
Yes, sir.
To allow discussion. If you want to do it, I don't want to do it.
Second it?
No.
I didn't make the motion.
Nobody did.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
To suspend the rules of order for discussion.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
Wait.
Yes, ma'am.
You need to have the motion for
Yes.
each item on the agenda, so as you go along.
Okay, I was, yeah.
consideration of those
Yes.
items.
So first motion, motion to approve by title only ordinance 2019-16, an ordinance to establish new standards for dilapidated structures. Before we do that, do we have a motion to discuss?
I'll make a motion.
Or a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. Discussion.
What are the standards?
We're in.
In your packet.
Are they in the packet?
Yeah, you have a red line version in your packets. Basically, it includes some selections from the International Property Maintenance Code to address some of the concerns raised by residents related to vacant structures that are not being well maintained on the island. This code, the amendment to this code, which is in front of you, would require that all homes both occupied and those that are vacant, keep the exterior walls in good condition, protected by paint or other covering, free of cracks, breaks, rot, and excessive mildew. Also keep the roofs free of leaks. Stairs, decks, porches, railings, and handrails, they should be properly attached and structurally sound. Also keep pools in good repair with filters on to ensure that the water is clean and sanitary. There is a provision also included as part of the amendment in front of you that allows staff to review properties on a case-by-case basis in the event of a disaster declared event.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to see if Douglas could, if we could ask.
He knew he was going to have to come up here.
I'm just wondering if you feel like this gives you a lot more just teeth and ability to keep these structures in a decent...
So I would answer that by saying that it is significantly more than what we currently can do. Currently, we can ensure that a building is not open, so that little kids could run in, so we can make them board them up. And then if they are in a condition where they are literally going to fall and kill somebody, we can do something. But other than that, I mean, if it's closed up and it's not going to harm somebody just walking around it, there's not really a lot that we can do. We have ordinances about cutting the weeds periodically that the livability officer handles. So this would do a lot more than what we currently do. I would warn you, though, that a structure that is compliant with this may still look awful. At the end of the day, it doesn't keep people from painting multicolored things all over the building, having it not look good. So I know that there's kind of a desire to have things really look nice, and this will not necessarily achieve that objective.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
This is one that you just can't win. And we've had, this is a multi-month endeavor where it was originally characterized as maintaining the character of the island. We got completely obliterated for that because everybody said, oh my God, you're going to do an HOA. There was never an intent to go anywhere near an HOA. There are a handful of dilapidated structures that I would characterize some of the behavior as egregious. We've iterated this thing so many times, mold on the side of a house. Well, most of us, I'm going to say most of us, I certainly do have some degree of mold. We live on an island with high humidity. Those items, there was never intent here, and I think when we added things and continued to make changes, we added such things as, the city's ability to inspect. I mean, Douglas very diligently went through over and over and redlined, and what's before council at this point, if you don't do this, to me, and you can answer this, Douglas, then we can't do anything, right? I mean, you're either going to say we're going to have an HOA or we're going to throw our hands up in the air every time we have an event where somebody says, I'll just paint the house multicolored. I'll just slap a board on to fix something. I think like many things up here and other ordinances that we'll talk about, it's trying to gain public consensus for appropriate behavior. It's not to legislate each individual event. And I think, it's a slippery slope, but and I would ask Councilmember Buchanan to speak to it, or Councilmember Ward. This debate, I mean, it's a very, very difficult debate to have. It's a tough decision to make, but the question is, do we want to do anything, or do we just say anything goes? That's all I've got to say.
Anyone else? I will say, based on what Douglas has said, it's a great explanation. Thank you.
And the pool thing, I think, is really, I'm glad y'all...
It was added.
Yeah, address that, because I know that has been an issue, and that really is a health hazard.
It is.
Okay, is that the end of this discussion? Okay. Ordinance 2019...
Susan had something else.
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to understand is the city's approach. What is our answer to people who fear that this will be overzealous and,
Not our intent. think the answer is that is not our intent, which
No.
Randy explained.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
And we have discussed this a bunch. One of the concerns I have is, what, like Douglas said, is I don't think it's necessarily going to solve the problem. You go through and you look at it, and you look at some of the information in here as well, and it's the foundation. It's not just exterior, you know. It's you look at some of the things where your flooring and your walls need to be plumbed, and so I mean, I know you can put a marble in the middle of my floor right now, and it goes in the bathroom, not into the house, and that's the way those homes are. I know that's not the intent of this ordinance, but like I said, it's an overlying when you look at trying to pass an ordinance to change one structure, you are looking at changing all structures. And there's a number of things still in this ordinance. And I feel that we have enough, you know, teeth in our current ordinance with our code, our National Building Code, that meets a lot of these issues that we're having problems with. And it still goes on to, you know, talk about, you know, right now, I mean, just foundation problems out here are a problem when you have a lot of these older homes. And if you go through, and you're going to have cracking in your veneers, and you're going to have cracking in your brick walls, and you're going to have separation between your windows. And I know if this law passes, I have the next 3 weeks busy at my house trying to bring this thing up to code.
We will have helped you.
So, and then, but I'm at getting rid of the excessive mildew or mold shall be removed from exterior surface. I can get my voice to do that, but still, it's one of those things that's it's you know, you're think about what you have going on. Think about your honeydew list that you have to do. So,
yes, sir.
Question for Douglas, please. This ordinance was brought up because of some concerned citizens that had, I think there was 2 or 3 houses in particular that we felt powerless to take any action on. This ordinance as it written, you feel like it's going to address those 3 houses?
I really can't answer that. I can tell you that the house that we have the most interaction with, that owner will do the absolute minimum to make it past the letter of the law, but not 1, you know, inch further. And that the building, I can tell you that building is still not going to look nice. It's an uninhabited house. It's not going to look nice once they've replaced the rot. This is going to require them to reattach some handrails, to remove some rot, and to turn a filter on in the pool, and it's not going to look great. So I don't know the answer to your question. That's been one of my kind of burning question is, you know, I don't know that it will satisfy in that situation.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
If we don't pass an ordinance such as this, is there liability for the city if someone gets hurt on that property because we had the opportunity to make some safety issue changes and we didn't?
I don't think so. I would defer to our...
We already have the authority to require safety repairs for safety concerns. This is purely aesthetic.
Okay.
Yeah, we are actively ensuring that it's enclosed. You know, that kids can't get into it. I've been up on the porch, I've bounced on the porch. You know, the pool, you have to go through, either through a gate or over a fence to get to it, which is just like you know, any other pool.
That's a sanitary issue, right?
Safety.
But you have to have basically trespassed or broken through a gate to get to it. So we're doing that now and we have been doing that for years on this particular house.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Second.
I will vote for this on first reading, but I have concerns about subjectivity and how this would be applied. I would maybe the committee could further address before it comes back.
I will say, I mean, if it becomes an ordinance, it is something that the city staff needs to apply consistently across the board. And that was, we discussed that in the meeting, and, you know, as soon as one person gets a ticket, they start seeing issues in other properties as well. So I think we need to be very careful about ensuring that the enforcement mechanism applies consistently across the board.
So, on consistency, on 2 comments. One is this has been addressed completely as a public safety issue, just so for clarity for everybody. It has been, whether it's the rodents and animals in the yard or the condition of the pool or the fall-through deck, it's been a public safety discussion. So it has not been a must be pretty discussion. And when you say consistency, it's like going to the doctor. Are you a 7 on the pain scale or a 2? Right? Consistency means that when you're a 7 or an 8, you apply some procedure to correct. It doesn't mean that for every violation that's contained within this code, if somebody has mold on the side of their house, that the mold police show up and tell you have mold. Am I correct?
Well,
So I think consistency, I'm just saying, there will always be subjectivity on this kind of a rule, always.
Yeah, I would just forewarn the council that whenever I charge somebody with anything, the very first thing they do the next day is bring me a list of 4 of the things that they feel like are as bad as what they... So it becomes, whether I want to put it under a microscope or not, it instantly goes under... You know, at least, yeah, it immediately gets analyzed for consistent behavior, and, you know, so we could not plan on, you know, only making one person do anything. If, you know, if other issues come out, we will have to be consistent in applying the code.
Mr. Mayor, one last question. Does there have to be a complaint made for you to go and inspect it, or do you just ride around the island and try to look at it?
There does not have to be a complaint made, but in practical application, that's the way it's handled. I'm not...
Okay. Is there anyone else? Okay. Ordinance 2019-16, ordinance amending Title VI, Health and Sanitation, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Article B, nuisances. An ordinance to establish new standards for dilapidated structures. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Oh, that was the discussion.
Sorry, I'm
Now
sorry.
you're approving first
I'll
reading.
second.
Right.
Okay, second. This is for first reading only by title. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No, I mean,
And all those nays, signify by- raise your hand and say nay.
no.
3 nays and rest ayes. Passes.
Desiree, can you give us what pending ordinance doctrine is?
The pending ordinance doctrine means that once it's approved at first reading, then any complaints or any enforcement that comes after would comply with the current ordinance that's
Okay.
approved.
Okay.
So currently, the pending ordinance doctrine applies to this ordinance as this has passed first reading.
Correct. So if somebody were tomorrow or this evening make a complaint about something, it can be enforced
Correct.
automatically. Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. And remember what I said before. Motion to approve by title ordinance 2019-19, an ordinance to prohibit smoking on the beach. If council wants to discuss, a motion must be made to discuss and
Just
second.
point of order. The language is suspend the rules of order to allow discussion on first reading.
Thank you, sir.
Motion to
I'm not
suspend the
making
rules of
that.
order to make a discussion on the ordinance 2019.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
We should vote on that.
You gotta vote on it.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm moving right on here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Okay, discussion. Yes, ma'am.
My question. I thought we already voted on this. I thought we voted on it, and is it just the language change? So this is a whole new ordinance? It's not the other ordinance we voted on?
Correct.
Okay, and the other ordinance was no smoking in public places, on the beach, on the walkways, city properties, da-da-da. So this is just on the beach, from Breach Inlet to 57th, or to the end to Dewey's,
Yes. To the Dweez.
on the beach,
On the beach.
It also includes beach access passes.
and beach access paths. Okay. So, if I want to smoke, I just go on the sidewalk, get off the beach, and I drop all my cigarette butts there.
Correct.
So,
I don't
the main
get it.
intent all along has been to focus on cigarettes and smoking at the beach. But we did have this other language, which was actually impactful in regard to city-owned properties. And I think out of the conversation that has emerged, I think, for this moment, focusing on the beach is the right thing to do. The marina already restricts smoking to a small area. We don't need to take that away, including the front beach streetscape on Ocean Boulevard, because it is technically a city-owned property, is problematic in messaging. Most people don't recognize that that's city property. And we should be, there is a good argument to make for allowing a place for legal smoking off of the beach and creating a good middle ground for a variety of reasons, including the fact that law enforcement and citizens on the beach can direct people they see smoking to a place where they can go and do it lawfully, and making that conversation less confrontational and compliance more likely. So we can also then focus our attention on the litter, cigarette litter that might happen on the streets, with more trash receptacles for cigarettes concentrated in that area, that could include good messaging about the right place to smoke and the right way to dispose of litter. So this is substantially different in that we're focusing on the beach. Nothing has changed in that we are still, except the latest count of our cigarette butts that we picked up in 2019 that have been recorded is over 14,000 now. And that's, as Kelly has pointed out, those are just the ones that we're picking up in a random snapshot of time. And so there's tens of thousands of cigarette butts that we're not collecting, that are maybe getting washed into the ocean or just are getting buried into our sand. They contain toxic chemicals. And this has never been about trying to get people to stop smoking. This is about the impact that smoking has, the litter and the smoke has on the people around them. And the majority of people want this change. And I think that the city has a moral responsibility here, knowing especially the concentration of cigarette butts that we have in the front beach area, where at any time during the busy season you can collect hundreds of cigarette butts, and knowing that we are also directing people to that area purposefully, because we want to gear many of our visitors, our day visitors, to that area. We are profiting from our parking lot to the tune of $850,000 this year. We need to do more to give everybody the opportunity to have a clean, healthy beach and to protect our environment, where we know that the oceans are at a crisis point for trash. And this is a proven way that we can tackle this problem, and it can be effective. And enforcement is not the issue that everybody makes it to be, based on what is being done in the 300 or more communities where they already have this. It becomes self-policing. It becomes the norm. Certainly not every single person is not going to be 100% effective, but we will significantly reduce what is one of our biggest trash items and accounts for 25% of the trash that we are collecting off the beach.
Councilman Bell.
Yeah, this was one where I was very much on the fence, and I will compliment council member on her comments, and I think she made a very good impassioned plea the last time. So, for me, there's a little bit of logic here, and I like consistency, right? So this council passed a plastics ban 9-0, right? Very little debate. And when you look at a plastics ban, you go, well, and I was the one that asked, does that mean when I bring my bag down to the beach with my dog that I'm violating the law? Probably not. But the intent was to change behavior over time, to educate people on proper behavior and what to do with their conduct at the beach. And the difference there is it's controlled basically at source point, right? We're not going to stop people from buying plastic bags in Mount Pleasant. The cigarette ban's not going to stop people from buying cigarettes anywhere. It's a gradual behavior change that's consistent with the 85% of the people in the country that do not smoke. And we tend to allow the minority that gets on social media to control the narrative on many, many issues. And they will be the noisy ones that say, and I've warned my fellow council member, be prepared to get beat up, right? There's going to be noise that this is awful. Our police chief, I think, said it well in multiple meetings. He's not the fun police. Not going to run up and down the beach looking for people smoking. I have talked to multiple people that live in areas where these bans went into effect, in states where you'd expect a little more confrontation. It's a non-issue. Behavior has changed. It's changed over time. It's not an issue of putting out citations and writing tickets for things. It's an issue of gradually causing the kind of change that we've seen indoors, in restaurants, and other places. And I can tell you, for me, again, it's consistency. You know, this council wants to sit here and talk about turtles. You know, maybe we make a little turtle plaque with a cigarette attached to its mouth, right? Because we don't choose to go all the way, and we're inconsistent in our behavior. I can't support the inconsistency, right? And I will say, I was hugely on the fence on this issue. But I think the logic prevails. We have people like Beach Santa that are kind enough to come and pick up that many cigarettes. We need to do what we're allowed to do up here to influence the behavior and protect the ecology of the ocean. That's it.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
But
Please.
you're, yes.
I just, we know we can help the problem by doing this. There is not a certain number of ordinances that you're allowed to pass. That was sort of part of the issue last time. It's like, we don't need another ordinance. Well, sometimes you do need another ordinance, and it's not a finite number of ordinances. We can pass an ordinance and feel really good about it and know that we're doing better and helping a problem that we have the data. I mean, that was one of the things that people kept saying, like, we need data, we need data. Well, we have the data. 14,000 cigarette butts, that's enough data. We know we can do better. We need to keep our beaches cleaner. We should do it for our children, for our grandchildren, for wildlife. There's just not a reason not to do this when we know that it will make the beaches and our community a better place. So again, we're charged with taking care of our community, which includes our beach, which is our greatest asset. Let's do what we can and do the right thing and have the courage to pass this, and that's where I stand.
Councilmember Moy.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to rehash everything that I said the last meeting when we talked about this, except for one point, which is I think the easy vote is to vote no, because you're not impacting anybody directly. The hard vote to support this ordinance is impacting our island, the generations that are going to come visit here and live here for years to come. And it's the difficult vote, but it's the one that we have to make. It's the only choice that we have before us. And I've been very proud to be part of this council and this island and being a leader in coastal protection and environmentalism. And I hope that we can continue this, being that leader. And so my charge to my fellow council members is to do what I think is difficult, but is the right move.
Yes, ma'am. Councilman Burns.
For me, this ordinance says, an ordinance to prohibit smoking on the beach. I thought we had a litter problem. What I haven't heard is, what are the steps that the committee looked at to get rid of the litter of the cigarette butts? We have 14,000 cigarette butts, but I haven't heard anything that says, and this is what we can do for the litter, which you're going to the next step and saying we're going to change if this is a smoking ban, we're not doing the litter. It does not say that we are going to reduce litter by 50% if we do this. I don't see the data that says, now I have heard that other municipalities say it works, but I haven't seen that they had 14,000 cigarette butts, and when they instituted this after 5 years, they had 5,000 cigarette butts. Because folks, you're not going to get rid of the cigarette butts by taking people that they can't smoke on the beach. They're simply going to take their smoking and their cigarette butts someplace else. And we're still going to have the litter problem. So I would have liked to have seen the committee come back with, here's how we are going to attack the litter problem, rather than attacking it from a smoking ban and trying to change the lifestyle of people that have a choice.
May I take a shot?
Yes, sir, please.
Response.
Always first shots, 4
Thank you.
seconds.
In response to Sandy's earlier point, which I have a concern, that we've watered this down from the previous ordinance that was proposed, I would like to make an amendment that would include the Front Beach parking lots. That's one of the biggest parcels of land on Front Beach. I would hate to have this go forward and just see people dumping their cigarette butts at Front Beach. So I move that we include Front Beach parking lot.
I'll second it.
Can we?
No amendment to first reading.
Okay, all right.
Amendments come by second.
Yes.
We'll come back and do it next month.
Okay.
The second issue I'd like to respond to, Sandy, it implies the ordinance itself, if you prohibit smoking on the beach, that's going to, in and of itself, reduce the waste on the beach. Now, it may go somewhere else, but perhaps we can manage it. And we've always talked about anything we do here is for environmental reasons, not for changing behavior. That's a loser. So what's imperative to this is that we have an education program and an informative program about all aspects of littering. And as you roll this out, which would include naturally the smoking element, I, for one, just for all of you, given our proximity to the holidays, I am not going to vote against Santa. Now, you do it. You all do it at your own peril. Thank you, Santa.
Okay, any other second comments?
I would just
Yes, ma'am.
I understand that tonight Sullivan's Island Town Council unanimously passed their first reading of a smoking ban for very similar reasons, and know that they have 2 more readings to go, but the unanimous decision, I think, is significant. We need to consider what our neighbors are doing. The timing of doing this now, that is one great reason to do it. We're all on the same page on this side of the Cooper, and I think the time is now.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'll approach one more thing. We've been one of the first cities to ban the sale of plastic bags. It says a lot about the city. Then we went through and banned the use of plastics on the beach. Now we're getting down to a smaller scope of it. Now we're going to go through and ban this cigarette smoking on the beach and perhaps in the parking lots, where they'll just be thrown again into the streets once they leave the parking lots. But you're talking about courage, so, I mean, like I said, if we've banned the sale. I mean, if you were truly, courageous about this ordinance and wanted to see change, then you would ban the point of sale of cigarettes out here in the zip code. And if you were truly wanted to make change, we banned the point of sale plastic. We banned plastic on the beach. I mean, that would be the direction to go, and that would really say something about that, and say something about your ordinance, and say something about how dedicated you are to making a change. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now we're back to our original motion to approve by title only 2019-19 ordinance to prohibit smoking on the beach. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay.
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 So it passes
What was it?
5-4, so.
5-4. Put your hands up, please, for the nays. So,
Ward, Carroll, Buchanan.
okay, now this was a two-parter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we would need a motion to reorder the agenda and take up item under public, the action item. under
Public Works. So do I have a motion?
I make the motion.
Wait, what's,
Going back to C, which is a December 3rd, second reading, which is
right, recommendation to include, read it out.
recommendation to include second reading ordinance 2019 in the agenda for the special council meeting on December 3rd, 2019. Do I hear a motion?
I make the motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
Why?
Sorry.
Why?
I can
You want
speak.
Go ahead, please.
So this council has slow-tracked this issue for 7 to 8 months now with extensive discussion in Public Works and additional discussion in Public Safety. This council knows the full history of the matter and has received extensive input from citizens who have emailed us from both sides over the course of those months. And hiccups aside, this council should be the one voting on this and finishing it. We know that we are getting ready to have a new council. Postponing second reading means this issue lives on for continued debate that could drag on, putting new members in the middle of an issue without the benefit of full involvement in past discussions and input from citizens on both sides. Looking back at agendas for previous years, while we might wish that the council did not do business during December, that is, I found quickly that is actually not true. That we frequently do have discussions, have things on the agenda, take votes. It may not be our full plate, but that does happen. So this would not be a break with tradition. In fact, last year, I believe we had a full budget workshop right before the holidays. So, and this is the best time for messaging because it allows us to incorporate the no smoking on the beach messaging with the plastics messaging that we're already rolling out January 1st. That means we can coordinate it, even though they're not exactly the same thing, we can coordinate that messaging in signs, which we're doing minimal amount, cost and impact for signs, press releases, and public awareness campaigns that we've all talked about that we need to get on top of. And if we are smart, we'll beat Sullivan's Island because we only have to have 2 readings and they have to have 3.
May I? Susan, those are all great reasons, but I got a better one. We were handed our paychecks this evening. See, we're still at work for the citizens of Isle of Palms, and we don't need to dodge an issue. We need to take the issue up and deal with it.
Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
And it really has been my hope that we do the messaging with Sullivan's Island, and I know that Sullivan's Island's hope too is that we're all on the same page and have the same, again, just message going out about smoking on the beach. And we don't want to become their ashtray. I mean, that's something we really need to be aware of. And we also do need to get more cigarette disposal items for Front Beach. And this is just the time of year when we can get all of that done before the spring break.
That's right.
Time, which comes so quick. So, and yes, we have been working on this. It's been this council, you know, to throw the next council under the bus with this issue. It's just not fair.
Councilman Moore.
Thank you. The discussion we had in Personnel Committee is powerfully salient with this discussion. And whether or not previous committees or councils have taken action in December, for me, is somewhat irrelevant. In our workshop was that it was a workshop. It wasn't a decision-making time. When you have a newly elected body that is ready to go, I think that we should instate them as soon as possible. I think that the will of the people is that they've chosen new representation for them, and that representation should begin as quickly as possible. And, I understand this has been a lengthy, laborious process, and I think that it's been commendable that we've gotten it to this point, and I hope that the new council will make the right decision. But I don't think that we should accelerate this vote. I think that the purpose of accelerating the vote is primarily because we know that we can get it through, just completely honestly, and we don't know how the new council members will vote. But the fact of the matter is that our community has chosen them to represent us, and I think that accelerating the vote at this point without with really that being the primary reason, I can't support it.
Mayor?
Yes, sir. Councilman Bell.
When you're in the game, you don't punt when the game's still on. And so I respectfully disagree. And I would add one thing. Putting the onus on the 3 new council members sitting out there is not the right thing to do. They've all stated publicly in the forum that they would not support the cigarette ban. So whether people want to spend more cycles on the same issue that's been debated over and over again because we feign our responsibility and fail to make the hard choice that you just spoke to put it on those 3 people to flip a vote, which is what we're talking about, is flipping a vote, and having the public come down hard and Beach Santa have to put them on the naughty list, I don't think is a really good idea either. So if we're going to make hard decisions, let's make them with this council. This is this council's issue, nobody else's, and punting at the end of the game is not the right answer.
Yes, sir.
It's going to take a new council to come up to speed. You're going to miss the season, and you're going to have another 20,000 or so cigarette butts out there without any effort by this august group to deal with it. John, the legislative process allows any future council to repeal any ordinance.
Okay. Anyone else? Second time. Yes, ma'am.
I would just also respond that by that logic, we should not have taken
That's
any
correct. order
of business in this meeting, and I don't believe you objected to voting on all the matters that were before us today. And there have been votes taken in December. It hasn't just been a workshop. I look back through several years. Election year, not an election year. There have been votes that have been taken in December. That may be something that we would like to be true, but it's not. And this council is elected through December. Our term as it stands now, while we might want to think about changing that, does not end when the election ends. We still have business to do. We still have things that we need to take care of.
Yes, sir. Councilman Ward.
This issue has done exactly what I predicted it was going to do. And it's just tear the island apart. And nothing's being accomplished except people are at each other's throats just for no discernible reason in my mind. It's not worth it. I'm about working together as a council to get things done. We got so many challenges and opportunities ahead of us. This is, to me, just a distraction, and I wish it had never come up.
Councilman Buchanan.
A term of office is not 3 years and 11 months. It's 4 years. And to say that we don't take action in December is erroneous. And it's like I said, I don't set the council, agenda. I think that's why we're probably having a vote on it. But there's nothing in our code that says we cannot have a meeting. There's nothing in December to discuss it. We can have special meetings. We're going to have a normally scheduled meeting. So I don't have a problem going through with the meeting and having discussion on it. It's I just don't understand why we wouldn't.
Okay. Does anybody else want to?
Yeah, you don't run from a difficult issue. In fact, what we're elected for and paid for is to take on the difficult issues, not to take on an issue that anybody else can do, or a volunteer can do, or a staff person can do. We're here to set policy. Oh, the feelings get frayed a little bit over X, Y, Z. Don't talk to me about a few cigarette butts. Talk about the Marina referendum.
Let's
and
keep
what
it
we
on.
made of that. It's completely germane.
Councilman Kinghorn, let's keep it
It's
to.
completely germane.
Okay, you're out of order.
I'm not out of order. You don't dodge from an issue because there's a little controversy. Where would we be anywhere in history
Okay,
if we
okay,
didn't
thank
deal?
you. Thank
I'm
you.
not done.
This
If
is
we
not
didn't-
about the
If we
cigarettes.
didn't deal with a little controversy, it's directly about the cigarette butts. And to sit up here and say, oh, a vote was unanimous, a vote was unanimous. So what? It's dialogue and discussions amongst ourselves and with our citizens that's of value.
That's right here.
Anything else is not.
I call for the vote.
Okay. All those in favor of having the second reading on December 3rd signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Raise your hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nays? 3 nays. Ayes have it. Okay, now the next one's going to be a lot easier. Motion to approve Resolution 2019 authorizing the consumption of beer and wine only at the Holiday Street Festival on December 7th. Do I hear a motion? I heard a motion. Do I hear a second?
Oh, I'll propose.
Okay. Any discussion?
Amendment to make it at city council meetings too?
Yes, ma'am.
Are we not, by having the consumption of beer and wine, are we putting more onus on our police in trafficking this? And also, we just talked about changing attitudes. What about changing the drinking attitude? You've got families there, you've got children there. How are you going to handle those folks that drink a little bit too much? Because our festival has always been a family-friendly, family-oriented event. And I don't see why we have to add the consumption of beer and wine.
We've always done it.
I know, but that the problem is there are complaints about families having some over-intoxicated young man or woman, going up and down, and especially at, when we start having the bands going and so forth and so on. And I'm just saying, have we thought about this in terms of family-friendly? We don't allow beer consumption at the rec department. This is a rec department event. I'm just wondering why we're doing this.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
It's a city-sponsored event. It's not purely the rec department. All departments take place in this, anywhere from the recreation to police to fire to public works. Everybody in administration takes place in this. This is something, and I hate saying it's something we've always done, but we've always allowed alcohol at the Bridge Run, the Front Beach, and different events that we've had going on there. What you're talking about is the same thing would be with like littering. We have laws for things like that. We have laws for littering. What it comes down to is enforcement. We have laws for drunk and disorderly. Okay. It comes down to enforcement. So definitely we're going to have a police presence there, and when somebody is acting a fool, then yes, we will take the appropriate measures to make sure that they're not, disrupting the family-friendly event that we plan to have down there that we've consistently had for years.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just would like to point out, it ends at 7 p.m. So, I mean, I just think it's always been well handled and...
Well, I just brought that up as a family-friendly event that people have asked me why we have beer
I think
and wine.
we have proven track record that it's everybody's happy at that family event, even.
Really happy. Some of them are a lot happier than others.
Right, and this is, while we've done this consistent, had alcohol at these events consistently, we just need to make sure that we start to have a resolution for each one of those events that we have. So this will not be the first one that comes up.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Wow, unanimous. Before we get to miscellaneous business, I just want to say to our outgoing council members, Carol Rice, Sandy Ferencz, Ted Kinghorn, thank you for your service. And for those buttons coming into service, Kevin Popson, Philip Pounds, and Rusty Streetman, welcome aboard soon. Okay, miscellaneous, next meeting is December 3rd. And then regular council meeting January 28th. Executive session, none needed.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.